Hello and welcome back to Shelf Centered. This is Bryce and this is my top shelf news where I like to talk about all things science fiction, fantasy, sometimes horror, and I do this on a weekish basis, as close as I can get. So I've got some great news. We focus mostly on the books, but also on media and then sometimes some channel updates and whatnot. So first things first, the books. Let's get into the books. Let's jump into it. Biggest news for me probably this week, The Bloody Chorus has an official cover. It's by John Marco, one of my favorite authors. I just can't get enough of it. This cover by Felix Ortiz and put together by Sean King, the design and everything put together by Sean King. Just wonderful. I love just the whole, like, that's a dragon whale in there. I can't wait to see what a dragon whale is and does. And anyway, I want to learn all about them. But you know, these blue people on the ship, the map, it's so nautical. I love a good yarn. I mean, Live Ship Traders is one of my favorite series or trilogies ever from Robin Hobb. So I'm all for this. I cannot wait, especially because when John Marco was writing this book, I mean, just the pure joy and love that he had like refound in writing. I can't wait to see it and see what that's like. But also big news is that you can already pre-order it. It actually gets released on February 8th, but you can pre-order it already. I'm going to do that absolutely because the pre-orders are biggest for an author, as I understand it. They're like a huge deal for an author, and that's one of the best ways that you can support them. And again, Felix Ortiz cover, Sean King, everything else. And then John Marco on top of it. Like it's just win-win-win. Then Mark Lawrence has a new book coming out, The Book That Wouldn't Burn. It's got a new cover. It looks pretty good. I'd already kind of featured it in my most anticipated books for this year, but it was for next year at the time. Looks good. Anything Mark Lawrence is doing, I am interested in. He is just a fascinating author. I compare him, I think, mostly to Abercrombie. That's one of my favorite authors, Joe Abercrombie. And I just feel like he's got that same kind of like witty writing that I just love in Abercrombie, and that's why I'm all for Mark Lawrence. All right, huge news from Scott Lynch. His website's referencing this, but I mean, you may or may not already know, but the fourth book, it's done in a draft form. But before that, Lynch plans to release 3 novellas, and those are, I got to read my notes. More Than Fools Fill Graves. I love his titles, are always the best. And apparently there's an excerpt from More Than Fools Fill Graves on the website already. Then we've got the Mad Baron's Mechanical Attic, and then the Choir of Knives is the third one. And then The Thorn of Emberlane is already apparently, again, drafted. It's, which is just, that's the biggest part, I think, getting the actual novel written, the editing and all that. It's definitely a process, but at least you got the pen to paper. Scott Lynch is just excellent. What an author. The Lies of Locke Lamore, if you haven't read it already, you definitely should. It's amazing. It's hilarious, and will teach you new ways to use colorful language. All right, then Brandon Sanderson news. I could not stop watching this, but he just had a big, huge live stream with the Dusty Wheel. I believe it was at the Dusty Wheel, but lots of big, just kind of, secrets that he'd been holding on to, that even more people have been holding on to for years, about the Wheel of Time, about the ending, about Lanfear. So if you know you're Forsaken, about Narg even, the Trolloc. So anyway, just some good secrets that it was just fascinating to listen to and hear kind of a lot of the backstory on when Brandon Sanderson was chosen to write The Wheel of Time, the kind of latitude that he was given to be able to be an author and not just a robot putting stuff into the other stuff. Boom. So it's pretty awesome that, part of why he was chosen was because he's an author, and it's like, go play, go do this. And just the amount of meetings that they had on certain events and characters, because it wasn't 100% laid out. There's a lot. And then, the death count was just interesting. Just a lot of good stuff, so I cannot recommend it enough. I don't want to spoil it all for you, but just hearing Brandon Sanderson talk about it, it's so fascinating. It's cool. What a cool process. Out of such a tragic event, because losing Robert Jordan for the world was tragic, and he's just an amazing author, which you get to see at least in those first 11 books, plus all the other books that he's released. And but it's just so amazing still to me how Sanderson was able to pick all that up and do with it what he did, which honestly is just incredible. To give us an ending that I thought was amazing. It was an incredible ending. Often people's favorite book of the series is the last book, and that's saying something. All right, Reader's Digest has released its top, and I don't know if it's the whole Reader's Digest top 25 fantasy books, because it might just be the authors, but I have some issues with it. Anyway, I'm like, do manga count? Anyway, I may have to do a whole video on it, as I struggle with it. There's the amount of books that are lacking from it, and part of it I've complained about, unfinished series being on a list like that. So maybe that's a good thing that it's not including those. But anyway, interesting list to say the least. It felt like a little disjointed to call it the best ever, but here we are. Let me know your thoughts about the list when you look at it. I'll link it below. All right, some George R. R. Martin news I thought was pretty fascinating. Well, first of all, just the Song of Ice and Fire calendars for 2024 are out. I love the art is always good in these calendars, so they're worth checking out alone for that. It's clearly a good cash grab for them, but I love, good art is good art, and that's, you could have worse calendars. So I thought it was interesting the Wild Cards series that he's been working on. It's essentially an anthology superhero type world series with lots of different authors participating in these books. As I understand it, the authors work on their own kind of superhero and in this world of the Wild Cards. And so apparently, though, it may, and there's no guarantee as I've learned in Hollywood, but it may be getting a TV series on Peacock. That's the one that's kind of piped up, and you just never know maybe it'll just get a season, but they're not Netflix at least. So there's that much going for it. We'll see. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. That's one series I've been meaning to get to, and I have a number of books in that because I found some really cool ones. All right, and then the biggest news that I felt like I wanted to give my 2 cents on. Let's see if we have time for this. AI art. I wanted to put some 2 cents into this because there's been a lot of talk about it lately, and I guess the first kind of thing that kind of brings this to my attention is publisher Tor, releasing Fractal Noise, the second book in Christopher Paolini's series, and admitting that it's AI art, that someone had AI art done for the cover, and essentially going, yeah, we get that, but we're not changing it. But duly noted. I didn't even hear but we will never do this again. It was just a duly noted. But anyway, if you don't already know, AI art is something it's kind of taken the world by storm, and it feels like it is all of a sudden. AI art as opposed to AI narration, or even, potentially AI writing books. Who knows, what the extent of that artificial intelligence can do our art for us. But especially in AI art, it just seems like what they do is, and I'm going to explain this as basically as possible, but because probably that's where I understand it most. But essentially, there's these algorithms created, and you have to put something into the database, right? Something in there, so it's people's actual art that's available on the internet thrown into this database that this program can then pull out of that and create the art that you describe. And it does not a bad job. You can tell to definitely degrees, and it's probably going to get better and better to where you can barely even tell at all. But right now, it's already even at a good place where it's believable, right, to being its own art. The problem comes in and where you're going, well, it's only taking from other artists that have actually done the art. Where's the line there? Where's the copyright line? Where's, there just seems to be a lot of issues with that, to say the least. And I think even the bigger issue is, do we want to encourage something like this? And there's an argument. It was Daniel Green made this argument for audio narration, being done in in an AI voice, but the AI voices are getting better and better. It's not just a robot anymore. And he said, hey, this might, make it at least more possible for an indie published book to be done in an audiobook form. But I think the same can be said for AI art as well, for cover art, that you could use it for anything like that. So it's kind of like, where do we draw the line with this? And it just seems like a slippery slope that I just don't like it in just a general sense. I get that there's like fair use and all that, but it's like, you're changing the art, but are you changing it enough? And even in music, right, you can kind of sample certain music, but you also have to include them and give them writing credits and give them credit where credit's due. So I have a very hard time with saying, hey, let's allow, because I see some benefits. I see some benefits to kind of to certain authors and whatnot, but at the same time, it's then a detriment, I feel like, to the world of artists, right? And I want to encourage artists that are good, and I want them to not be afraid that, hey, their art's just going to be used for something else to be done for free, when I want them to be paid so they can keep doing their great art. That is hard, and I'm not one always to just jump to conclusions, because I feel like that is the common sentiment, at least in the book community. And again, that's why there was all this outrage against Tor. Now, Tor itself, I understand why they may have had to do what they've done. I feel like they probably should have noticed this sooner. That would have been really the way to go. But now that it's brought to their attention, it is hard to, I think, just stop the production process. It's, contracts have gone through. You're opening yourself up to a lot of litigation. Yeah, they're a big publisher, but at the same time, I just feel like, I don't know, are publishers really that big? Maybe they are, but big enough to take on a huge firestorm like this? I don't know. I just hope that they do learn from this and they don't do it again, though. I mean, this is the second one that I know of, both from Tor. There's the Ian Cameron Esselmont cover as well. So I did not hear from them that they're going, we'll never do this again. I would like to see that. I would like to see at least a big publisher doing that. And maybe I could forgive an indie author for going the route of inexpensive AI art for their book. I think, there's a gray area. I feel like it's not just an all or nothing. But again, where's that slippery slope to actually fully, do we cut it off? This does not assist society. This does not help society. It actually makes it worse. My thoughts that go into it. Funny enough, with AI audio, I had some experience. I had an old Kindle, and on older versions of Kindle, it would let you turn on text to speech, and so it would do the robotic voice. And so I remember one time, so I used to study in the local library for the bar examination, and I would take my breaks and pull open, I remember it was Leviathan Wakes, and I have Leviathan Wakes, plug in my headphones, and turned on my text-to-speech so I didn't have to think too much while I'm in the middle of studying and I'm reading while the text is speaking to me. But lo and behold, mine was broken. I had not done this apparently before, or maybe I had, and that just makes me feel really weird. But instead of just going into my ears, it was also audibly speaking to the whole library. So great, yeah. So someone actually literally had to come up and be like, "Sir, we can all hear that." And so I'm like, oh, and I turn it off, and of course it doesn't turn off right away. I'm like, okay, all right. So I finally get it off, and the guy walks away like like laughing, and I'm like, oh gosh, that was embarrassing. So don't worry, I fixed it. Made sure it worked this time. Listened out without my headphones and did it right. But holy cow. Anyway, that was a thing. And if it were that's not, I feel like, sustainable too long. But since AI voices are getting a lot better, again, I love, and I don't know if AI is really ever going to get the kind of nuances that a great audiobook narrator can do, like your Travis Baldree or your Luke Daniels or Kate Redding, right? Like that you're ever going to get like the power and the motion, the gravitas that they have. But maybe, again, it's already, if you look at some of these AI, I don't know, just from some of the commercials that have popped up, they're like, hi, I'm Alan, and I'm an AI, and they're like, it's not, like perfect, but it's not far off from a human. So anyway, it's concerning, but there's, at least with audiobook, I feel like with narration, you're not like stealing from someone, right? You may be stealing a job from somebody, but you're not actually taking art that someone else has already done and stolen it. So that's really the main point for me, where I go, look, AI art is based on, literally, it can only be based on other people's art. That's where I see, all right, I frown. I do not want that. I do not want to encourage that. And I hope that, let's see what the law does, because the law is there and it's going to be new enough. I would not want to enter it, but I feel like, let's see that some lawsuits get filed. We create some common law. We at least figure it out, and maybe some statutes go in there, and we actually create statutes that kind of govern that. But let's see where the judges are going to land on this, and actually, put a stop to stuff that shouldn't be happening. Whereas at least narration is something that it's just somebody reading, right? You're going to take and again, it's going to be a preference thing. If you like it that way, then you're going to like it that way. I have my favorite narrators that I will constantly go back to, so I'm going to go back to them and keep hoping that people keep using these great people. Anyway, that's my big discussion on AI art. I know I did a whole lawyer thing and went all over the place, but I think that's the line, and I kind of had to think it through out loud with you here, and I feel good about that, kind of the line that I can draw there. Let me know your thoughts. Where am I off? What is my logic wrong on? Please let me know, but I just feel like it is something that we need to be aware of and concerned about, because it has ramifications for the future, and what do we want to encourage and what do we want to discourage. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been the news to me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.